How many times have you heard someone say, if they're so unhappy, why don't they just leave? It's easy to judge from the outside, to think it's a simple matter of willpower. But let me tell you, it's rarely that simple. Toxic relationships weave a web of psychological and emotional traps that can be incredibly difficult to break free from. We're talking about hope, fear, manipulation, even biological factors that bind people to situations that are hurting them. And the longer someone stays, the more entangled they become. It's like quicksand. Struggling can actually pull you down further. So today we're diving deep into the why behind staying. We're going to unpack the hidden forces that keep people stuck and, most importantly, give you the tools to recognize the signs and break free. Let's talk about hope. It's a powerful force, right? We cling to hope because it promises a better tomorrow, a light at the end of the tunnel. In toxic relationships, hope can become a double-edged sword. See, when someone's treating you poorly, you hold on to those fleeting moments of good, those glimpses of the person you fell in love with. You tell yourself, this is just a rough patch, or they're under a lot of stress right now. You convince yourself it's going to get better, that they'll change. But hope without action, without real change, is just a fantasy. It's like waiting for a bus that's never coming. And while you're clinging to that hope, you're losing precious time, energy, and self-worth. Then there's fear. Fear of being alone, fear of financial instability, fear of judgment from family and friends. Fear whispers in your ear, who else will want you? You'll never make it on your own. What will people think? This fear can be paralyzing. It keeps you trapped in a cycle of hoping for the best while fearing the worst. And let's not forget about dependence. Toxic relationships often create a dynamic where one person becomes emotionally, financially, or even physically dependent on the other. This dependence can be subtle, built over time. The abuser might isolate their partner from friends and family, control the finances, or chip away at their self-esteem. This creates a power imbalance, making it even harder for the victim to leave. They feel stuck, believing they need the abuser to survive. But here's the truth. You are stronger than you think. You are capable of building a life outside of this toxic dynamic. But first, you have to break free from these psychological traps. Let's dive into how these toxic relationships maintain their grip. It's often a masterclass in manipulation. One common weapon: guilt. They might say, after all I've done for you, or if you really loved me, you wouldn't do this. They twist the narrative, making you feel responsible for their happiness. And then there's gaslighting, one of the most insidious forms of manipulation. This is where the abuser makes you doubt your own sanity. They deny your reality, contradict your memories, and make you question your perceptions. They might say, you're imagining things, or that never happened. Over time, gaslighting erodes your self-esteem and ability to trust your judgment. You start to question yourself, wondering if you're too sensitive or even going crazy. This self-doubt makes it harder to recognize the abuse and find the strength to leave. We need to talk about the cycle of abuse, because understanding this cycle is crucial to understanding why breaking free is so difficult. It's not a linear path, but a repeating pattern that keeps people trapped. It often starts with a period of tension building. The abuser might become increasingly irritable, critical, and controlling. This tension simmers beneath the surface, creating a constant sense of anxiety and dread. Then, the tension explodes into an incident of abuse. This could be verbal, emotional, physical, or even sexual abuse. The abuser might yell, belittle, hit, or coerce their partner into doing something they don't want to do. After the explosion comes the honeymoon phase. The abuser might apologize profusely, shower their partner with gifts, or promise that things will be different. They might blame their behavior on stress, alcohol, or even their upbringing. They might try to minimize the abuse, saying things like, "It wasn't that bad," or "You're overreacting." This honeymoon phase can be incredibly seductive. It reinforces that hope we talked about earlier, that glimmer of the good times. The victim wants to believe that this time is different, that the abuser really means it when they say they'll change. But here's the catch: the cycle almost always repeats. The tension builds again, another explosion occurs, followed by another honeymoon phase. And with each cycle, the abuse often escalates, becoming more frequent and more severe. This cycle creates a powerful emotional roller coaster. The victim experiences highs of hope and lows of despair, making it even harder to leave. They become conditioned to expect the abuse, to normalize it, and to blame themselves for it. Now you might be thinking, but why would someone stay through such terrible treatment? And the answer, in part, lies in our biology. See, human beings are wired for connection. We crave love, intimacy, and belonging. And when we experience these things, even fleetingly, our brains release powerful hormones like dopamine and oxytocin. These hormones create feelings of pleasure, bonding, and attachment. In toxic relationships, these hormonal surges often occur during the honeymoon phase. The abuser's apologies, promises, and displays of affection trigger those feel-good chemicals, reinforcing the bond despite the abuse. It's like an addiction. The victim becomes hooked on these intermittent bursts of positive reinforcement, even though they come at a high cost. Moreover, our brains are wired to seek out familiarity, even if it's harmful. This is known as the familiarity principle. Think about it. We often prefer predictable discomfort over unpredictable change. In the context of a toxic relationship, this means that the familiar patterns of abuse, however painful, can feel safer than the uncertainty of leaving. The victim knows what to expect, how to navigate the minefield of the abuser's moods, and how to protect themselves as best they can from the inevitable explosions. This doesn't mean they enjoy the abuse, but it does make it harder to break free. Leaving means stepping into the unknown, facing their fears and confronting the possibility of a future without the abuser. And for someone who's been conditioned to believe they're worthless, incapable, or unlovable, that can feel terrifying. So, how do we break free from these toxic patterns? It starts with awareness. You have to recognize the signs, both in yourself and in the relationship. Are you constantly walking on eggshells, afraid to speak your mind? Do you feel drained, depleted, or emotionally exhausted after spending time with this person? Do you find yourself making excuses for their behavior, minimizing the abuse to yourself and others? These are red flags, folks. And if you're experiencing any form of physical, emotional, or verbal abuse, please know that you are not alone and it is never your fault. Reaching out for help is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of incredible strength. Talk to a trusted friend, family member, therapist, or a hotline. Surround yourself with people who support you, who believe you, and who want what's best for you. These people can provide a lifeline, a source of strength and encouragement as you navigate the difficult journey of leaving. Remember, breaking free from a toxic relationship is a process, not an event. There will be setbacks, doubts, and moments of intense emotion. Be kind to yourself. Allow yourself to grieve the relationship and celebrate your courage every step of the way. Start setting boundaries. This might mean limiting contact with the abuser, refusing to engage in arguments, or walking away from conversations that are unhealthy. Focus on rebuilding your self-esteem. Toxic relationships chip away at your sense of self-worth, so it's crucial to remind yourself of your value. Engage in activities you enjoy, reconnect with your passions, and surround yourself with people who uplift you. Remember, you are worthy of love, respect, and happiness, and you deserve to be in a relationship that nourishes your soul, not one that diminishes it. It's a complex interplay of psychological, emotional, and even biological factors that can make it incredibly difficult to leave. But here's the truth. You are not alone. Millions of people have been exactly where you are, feeling trapped and hopeless. And millions have found the strength to break free and build happier, healthier lives. Remember, you are worthy of love, respect, and happiness. You deserve to be in a relationship that empowers you, not one that diminishes you. Take that first step towards freedom. Reach out for support, set boundaries, and start rebuilding your life. You've got this. Staying in a toxic relationship isn't about weakness, it's about deeply rooted psychological and emotional struggles. Watch now to understand why people stay and how they can break free.